Hello, Mike. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How about you? How's the day been so far?
So far, so good. So, welcome to Azure Saturday and welcome to your session.
Very pleased to be here, really. Unfortunately, it's not in real life, but yeah, that's how things go, I guess.
Okay. So, this is also one really interesting question, especially because DevOps in the name, which is one of the buzzwords today. So, I think that will be nice for all of our attendees, even though we are almost 9 hours online today. It's pretty long Saturday, so a lot of good sessions we had already and a few more until we complete a conference this year. So I can probably say stage is yours, so you can start with your introduction, session, demos, and everything what you prepare for us.
I hope the audience will be pleased. Really happy to be here. First of all, I want to thank you for letting me speak at Azure Saturday Belgrade. It's very nice to be in another part of the world for once. Of course, this wouldn't be possible without all of your great sponsors. And again, please keep doing this because this is very important for the community. Things like this need good sponsors and they need a lot of attention because else we will not be able to do these things. So a very big thank you to all the sponsors that are sponsoring this event. Now on with the show. I'm going to talk a little bit about the continuation that my predecessors gave in this track. I mean, Sergey had just had a very nice talk on how to scare people with security. Maybe I'm going to give you a couple of tips on how to prevent some of the things that you can come across with when we're talking about security in application landscape. This is not a specific talk on Azure DevOps or on GitHub or specifically bound to that. I'm just using these tools to set a point, but these things can also apply in other CI/CD environments. It's a little bit on, you will see in a second on what it is all about, but maybe a little bit on the title. So I'm going to talk about the fifth element, and the fifth element, for those who saw the movie, is it's a science fiction movie. It's one of the better science fiction movies ever made by Luc Besson, very well-known French director. And in that movie, there's, of course, the wonderful Mila Jovovich, who plays a very important role in there. But it's about a concept, and there's a priest that renames it, and that totally explains it in the beginning of the movie. They read a hieroglyphic on alien culture, and their states, in their possession are the four elements of life. So that's water, air, earth, and fire. And these are gathered around the fifth, what they call the supreme being, the ultimate warrior created to protect life. Now, the funny thing is we can apply this same principle inside of our development and full operational scope when we do IT projects. Now, where are we putting this? Well, security can be seen as a central point, the supreme being, the ultimate warrior that will protect us. And security and warrior kind of makes sense. And the other elements are actually secure design, secure coding, secure building, and secure operations or secure deployment. It's a little bit a combination of those. And as you can see, I made a graph which has multiple subdivisions in there. So we have the secure design phase, we have the secure coding phase, we have the secure build phase, we have the secure deploy phase, and underneath the secure build, we will see that we talk about secure scanning, secure depth, secure dependency management, and also secure ops and secure monitoring. So this is a little bit the agenda and the way we will handle this session. So grab some Coke, grab some water, sit down. It's going to be a bumpy ride, and I hope you will enjoy what I'm going to tell you. So let's first talk a little bit about the security development lifecycle. So the SDL or the SDLC is more about how you cope as an organization with security from every point of view, so from every angle. And you need to have a couple of parts in that lifecycle that are very important for the entire organization of your IT landscape. First of all, there's the part of the education, where you need to go over training and requirements. So you need to make sure that everybody is aware of what's going to happen, and that they are aware of what the things are that could go wrong. So you need to create awareness amongst your people. Then we talk about requirements. Requirements gathering is just like when doing a normal application. You need to have requirements gathered for building a well-formed application, a well-formed solution. But here you also need to gather the requirements on a different level. You need to do a little bit the risk management and the risk investigation, those things. And then we talk about design, the implementation, the verification of what we're doing, where we go up to the end part, which is the release of your software. And very important in an SDLC is also make sure that you have an incident response plan. So when things go wrong, or when things tend to go wrong, you need to make sure that you're able to respond in a proper way. And unfortunately, I have to say that, but some of our colleagues that we have in IT landscape had some very bad experiences the last couple of months. I'm sorry for the guys at SolarWinds. They shouldn't have gone through this, but I give them all my heart. But these are the things that happened on the wrong level, and things can go wrong on many levels. And this is something that you need to keep in mind. So when we talk about the SDLC, there's a couple of sub dimensions that we can take a look at. So, and I'm just going to point these out. I'm just not going to go over them, but some of the more important ones are the requirements that you need to do. And from these requirements, we can go up to the next part, which is what we call the threat modeling phase. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second. But also, we talk about how we need to set up and define some standards like cryptography. And we need to make sure that we are using approved tools and that we apply them in a very good way of testing, like for instance, static analysis security testing. And we do some of these things we already do, like if we are doing code coverage and stuff like that, that's also kind of static analysis. But this is really based upon security. And then we also have dynamic analysis, which is at the point on where we all do automated testing of endpoints. A little bit what Sergio just talked about, like OWASP testing. This is a little bit on that side. We can do that from a code perspective, but you can also do that from a live perspective. And of course, penetration testing. This is more on the operational side, where we're gonna test the environment and where we're gonna move on. But all these things come together with an SDL best practice. So these are the things that you need to focus on where you're doing secure development lifecycle, but also secure DevOps and secure ops. And this is really, it's a principle, it's practices that you need to adhere to, and it doesn't matter what tools you're using or what kind of a form of methodology you use, as long as you try to implement these, this is where you can add value to your end users, but also for your developers. And we also talk a little bit about, in that phase, we also talk a little bit about the shift left. Typically, security was always seen at the end of the line, meaning after deployment, the security was never being followed up from the developer stance. I'm also going to point out a couple of tips here that developers can use to make their software better, but also for building it more securely. So this is what we call the shift left motion. So let's first talk about secure design. And secure design, in my eyes, starts with something we call threat modeling. And Microsoft has been doing threat modeling for a long time. I work for Microsoft. I didn't get to introduce myself. I'm a cloud solution architect for Microsoft, and I do a lot of talking to partners, but also ISVs. And they need to create very secure SaaS software or very secure software that they sell or try to sell, or where you can subscribe to. And they need to make sure that their software is secure from the heart. So I get to talk about this a lot with those kind of organizations. Now, Microsoft has been doing SDLC for a long time, and we have been doing threat modeling for a long time too. And there's one thing that apparently we invented, I didn't know that, but apparently in the late 90s, we invented something called STRIDE. And STRIDE is an acronym which exists out of spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege. these things together make what we can identify as risks within our software. And it's not about the classes that we implement, or it's not about the interfaces that we build. No, it's more about how the data can flow and where the weaknesses are in all the different kind of elements in our solutions. So to give you an idea, you can have information disclosure if you have a breach somewhere in your software where you have a weak link which can be accessed by means of, let's say, impersonation of a user. And that way they can actually get into the software and download the entire database. So that's kind of the thing that you want to avoid. And it goes on over authentication, authorization, all these things come together. Now, we added an additional acronym. Microsoft wouldn't be Microsoft without adding acronyms. We added an additional acronym called DREAD. And DREAD is actually more about a pointing system to give scores on how some things might, in that stride element, might have an impact, and what are the more riskier and the less riskier parts that you can have inside of a software. Now, this is less of important, but it's more important that you have an element on, and that you have a good idea on what that stride element is. So let's talk a little bit about what threat modeling actually is and how you can use it. So the first thing in threat modeling is, what are you building? So what is the model behind it? The second part in threat modeling is, what can go wrong? So identify the threats that you can that can happen and that can occur. The third part is, what are you going to do about it? Or how can we mitigate those risks? And how can we work around with them? And the fourth part is, did you do a good job at 1, 2, 3? Yeah. If not, what do I need to do? So validate what you've been doing and look at all the elements that you've identified. So let's take a look on, we have something at Microsoft, a free tool, which can help you with that, which is called Threat Modeling Tool. And TMT, and it has nothing to do with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but TMT is a tool that looks a little bit like Visio, but it has some additional hooks. And I have the QR code, and you will see these in all my slides. I have a QR code that you can scan. You will get the slides afterwards anyway. There's a quick link that you can access, so that way you can immediately take a look at the tools yourself. So I'm giving you all these tools, and most of the tools I'm talking about here are free, so there's no cost involved, and they can really save your life at a certain point in time. So good for the guy. Right. So let's take a look at what this TMT thing is. So I have threat modeling tool here open. I already opened up a model, and this is a model which we built as a reference model for the UK government. You can also find that on our websites. And what you can see here is that you don't talk about real application blocks. You talk about the solution blocks that you're going to implement. So if we're doing Azure, and this is what my end goal is to make sure that this all applies to Azure. If you're talking about Azure, you have all these elements that you can use. Now, we have a template that you can use inside of that we can use on inside of TMT, which are all referring to Azure elements. So we have things like, as you can see here, Active Directory, and we can just click and drag them in there. Now, it's just drawing, looks a little bit like Visio. You can set boundaries and stuff like that. And here we have, like, for instance, there's this web app. And as you can see, it has all these properties that you can set. And all these properties are actually creating references into the security parts that are coming along with it. And then you have the connection lines, which are actually the flows in between, and where you can set what kind of a security, what kind of a boundary it is, how the connection is built up, whether it's HTTPS, whether it's HTTP, and so on and so on and so on. Now, this looks very empty and just a drawing, but the real power actually houses inside of this. So if we take a look at the view, we can actually change the view inside of from design view into analysis view. And this will give me a full threat list that is being generated automatically based upon all these properties that you're setting. And this gives you a risk list back on the entire solution. And now you can use this entire list to identify some of these risks. So here we have, for instance, I have here elevation. Let me see. I have here elevation using impersonation. If I click that one, I can actually go from my web app to a key vault, get up a key, and I can actually impersonate that user, or I could be able to impersonate that user if I get somebody's credentials, for instance. So all these things together generate a mitigation list or a checklist that you can use inside of your development. Now, most of the people, for those who have never seen this, use it and try to do a model on top of the existing software that you have or the things that you're going to build in the future. And from here out, you can also set, you can manage this list, and you can also set the priority, whether it's a high priority or low priority. You also see what kind of things that can happen if you implement it badly, and whether you need to actually investigate this kind of risk, or whether it's not applicable, or whether it's already mitigated by implementing some of the things that you have. And then in the end, you can set a full report that you can just generate. And it's just a it will generate a full HTML list. Normally, it doesn't take that long to generate it, so I just do save it here. So this Azure Saturday. Well, let me just save it as Azure Sat. There we go. And once I save it, it will normally automatically open in a new browser window. Here we are. It opened it, of course, into my streaming window, of course, never on the window that you have. And there you see per part all the things that happened here. You can implement this HTML file inside of your wiki, so that way you have a follow-up checklist, which make it really, really handy to follow up. So if there's already one takeaway that I want you to have today, it's use TMT. It's a free tool. It's just easy downloadable as a click once installer, and you're gone. And you can start doing your design on how your application is working. So at least try to do that and take a look at it and read a little bit about threat modeling. Now, next part in our journey is secure coding. And secure coding principles, we have a couple of things that you can help implement on your own thing. Now, first of all, there's this thing that you would like to avoid, that is credentials and secrets inside of your code. Now, first of all, never do that. Never store secrets or credentials inside of your code, hard-coded or in web configs. We have tools for those, especially if you're deploying into Azure Cloud. Also exists in other clouds. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to talk about competition here because I'm focused on Azure. But the other clouds also have these kind of things. So if you're using AWS or Google, they have a solution for that. But try to avoid secrets, tokens, usernames, passwords, all these things inside of your code, which it's a very bad practice. So what we try to do instead is use things like Key Vault. And now with .NET Core, there was a package that you can use, that you can download, a NuGet package, which makes it easier for you to do secret management inside of your application and set up these things for you. So take a look at this one. I'm not going to demonstrate this one because I have too many other demos that I want to show you, but use this one to make it easier to implement Key Vault inside of your applications. Yeah? So this is just a NuGet package that you need to download and you can immediately start using it. Now, on the other hand, some tools can be used automatically when it comes down to credential scanning. Now, Microsoft has a couple of tools in there in that kind of a level. First of all, we have, if you're still using Visual Studio 2017, which you shouldn't be, but you can still download a extension called Continuous Delivery Tools for Visual Studio. And this has CredScan in there, which immediately does credential scanning from within the IDE. So that makes it easy to identify credentials that have been built inside of your code. Now, we also, at Microsoft, we built this technology inside of our GitHub environment. GitHub has been doing this since a couple of years in public repos. So if you put in a credential inside of a GitHub repo, in a public repo, you will actually be warned about that those credentials have been put inside of your code. Even on a private repo and with the advanced security features that we have in GitHub, you also have these things. So let me quickly open up my GitHub repo. Let's go to GitHub. and I'm going to go into my organization. And here I have a GitHub repo called T2KX JS Action. It's a private repo. As you can see here, there's a security thing here, a security tab. And this comes with, by default in there for some of these things. And one of the things that we have today is secret scanning. And as you can see here, this does exactly what CredScan does. So let me make it a little bit bigger. I put here a SQL connection string in there in a web.config file, or actually I put it into a secrets file, but it's okay. It doesn't matter where it is. So let's assume that I put this kind of weak credential store inside of my repository. And as you can see, it's referring to a SQL Azure database. And I made a big mistake here because I actually put this inside also my user and password here. Now you can try to access it. The database doesn't exist and the user and the password doesn't exist either. But it will show you the elements that have been scanned and recognized as a secret. So this is now a potential risk inside of my repository as a developer. So I need to make sure that these get taken out, that these are being destroyed afterwards, and that there is no trace anymore in the history, and that I can put these secrets inside of Key Vault for a better way of using for that. Now, so use these tools at your disposal. We also have CredScan inside of another toolkit that I'm going to show in a second. But you only can access those as premier support contracts. So that's a little bit unfortunate because I rather want to see CredScan back inside of Visual Studio, but yeah, such is life. So next to that, we also have a securing coding library or a Roslyn analyzer that can help you with that. And this one actually comes with security intelligence. It exists for both Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, downloadable for free. Again, a free tool. And this actually, what this does, it will generate a full error list with all the different aspects of bad coding principles. So it's not only on Azure this time, but it's really on bad coding principles, no matter what kind of things that you're going to use. To give you an example, so I have Visual Studio open here. So here I have an application that I built. And here you can see all the errors that have come out. So there's this security intelligence CS code that you get, and this is actually referring to all the bad practices that I've implemented inside of my code. So one of these things that I have here is, for instance, I created a web request, and if I hovered over here, you will actually see the recommendation to use HTTPS instead of HTTP. You should always use HTTPS. It's a better way of doing it. And this entire list will actually help you to create better coding principles. I have a sample here. I think it's this one where there's a big error. Is it this one? No, that's still the upset. Yeah, here it is. So here we're having a full error. So if I go to this one, here we go. So the shared access protocol is HTTPS or HTTP. This really should be, this is seen as a real problem. It's a high risk. And you should only allow the use of HTTPS. So we should really change that. If I click on these things, we'll actually be forwarded to the full documentation behind this. So if I open up my browser, which is, here we go, you will actually see, oh, permission on that. Okay, apparently, so I'm not going to show you that. But if you open up that, you will actually see the documentation behind it. I don't know why it's not working, but it will really help you to identify all the different kind of risks that you're implementing inside of your code. So it's a free plugin that you can use. It also works with Visual Studio Code, as I mentioned. So I have code open here. Here we go. So I hope this is readable. So I opened this crypto sample here, and there's 9 risks involved, as you can see here. And they will be highlighted inside of the problem area. So here we go. Random is, for instance, a very weak and dangerous thing to do a random number, because here you can see why. When used in context of crypto, random number generator should be cryptographically secure. The class random does not, and what was it? Does not meet the requirements and should not be used. So this SIG IntelliSense for Visual Studio Code does exactly the same thing as we have in Visual Studio. So I have no excuse to do not start implementing better coding practices. Okay, just to give you an idea. All right, on with the show. So at least I hope you already have some interesting things to see, and I hope you didn't know about it because else wait, you know. So hope you learned already something. Now, your security is only as good as the level of security that you also bring to your development of environments. It's not only how you can run your Visual Studio and your code, but we also talk about, and especially the DevOps part, which is a culture. It's not a thing. It's more about application lifecycle management in this case, but you get the idea, right? It's not only about the way you develop, it's also the way you manage your environment. You need to make sure that not everybody has full access to your code. You only need to give access to your coding system or your DevOps system to those people that actually need access in there. So the developers, of course, they need to be able to write and read from the repositories, but also maybe some stakeholders for Kanban boarding and all these things. You can think of the name. You know, there's different types of users. So make sure that they get the correct permissions, and always try to do and adhere the principle of least privilege. This is the best practice that you need to have. Okay, so and when we talk about these things, there's also something that you can do about it to even check whether your DevOps pipeline is being built correctly. Now, in Azure DevOps, for those who are still using Azure DevOps and haven't switched to GitHub, we have a build step that you can implement. So let's try this again, because this, for some reason this failed to load. So let's try to do this again. Make it a little bit smaller. So in Azure DevOps, we have a plugin that you can download, free plugin that you can use, which does to be implemented in the build, and this will check your entire environment on how secure you set up your Azure DevOps environment. So where do your here we go. So where do your pipelines have been set up, and where you didn't grant too much control, too little control to certain kind of pieces in your Azure DevOps pipeline. This comes with a tool called AZUG. A little bit more on that in a second. But this will give you a full scan of your environment, and there's actually two plugins for that. There's two widgets for that. There's one for build, release, and connection agent tools, and there's one for the organization of projects. And this will actually scan and show you, for instance, do not enable access for external users inside of your organization if you implement it with AAD, right? So you don't want that. You don't want additional people from outside of your organization inside of your code. Maybe you should. Maybe you should have, for some reasons, but make sure that they get another kind of user there. Okay, so and all these things will actually be checked upon that build system, and that build system will give you a build return. So, and that result then will be pushed inside of this widget. Yeah. So you can use this to validate how secure you set up your AZDO or your Azure DevOps environment. Okay, and this brings us a little bit inside of the world of what we call SecOps. So this is where we go into the next phase, where we not only have a here it is, where we not only have a secure setup, but we go into the next phase where we do CI/CD building and secure deployments and all these things. So let's take it to the next level. Secure build. So with secure building, we have a plethora of options. Whether you're doing it inside of GitHub or whether you're doing it inside of Jenkins, TeamCity, or Azure DevOps, as I'm going to demonstrate in a second, there's a lot of tools out there that are for free that can be implemented in a very easy way, in a very cool way. But there's one word of warning that I need to give you. All these tools also come with a certain amount of knowledge that you need to have to implement. It's not really about how it works, but more how to interpret the results. So you need to take a good validated look on what's going on there and make validated choices. So some of the things that you can do, and to give you an idea, there's a lot of security plugins that you can have from within the entire Azure DevOps environment. So we have OAuth, SAPScan, we have WhiteSource, we have SonarQube, we have AZSK, Aqua Security, you name it, the entire thing is there. I'm going to give you some of the things that are really interesting here, and some of the things that are really nice to have and implement and easy to implement. So that's the quick wins. Let's call it like that. So one of the things that I love, unfortunately, they're going to deprecate it, the service, but there's going to be a new service built upon on top of that you need to implement in a later phase, is AZSK. And the AZSK is a toolkit. It comes from internal Microsoft, but we gave it back to the world a couple of years ago. And one of the things that are in there is a template checker for both your ARM templates and your subscriptions. So what this does is actually, as you can see here, it does a scan of, in this case, the subscription. So it comes with a couple of PowerShell commands. One of them is AZSK subscription security status, and this will scan the entire subscription where you deploy it securely. But you can also do pre-scans. As you can see, it will go over all the different elements that are being identified here, and that you can check against. And as you can see, it gives you a nice summary at the end. And this also does this for ARM templates if you want to. So I have an ARM template here in this directory. So let me just do a CLS for a second, so that way you can see it on the top, make it a little bit bigger, so that way it's better readable. So I have a here we go, an ARM template, and there's this get AZSK ARM template security status. So if I do this will scan the entire template, the entire ARM template, against the best practices that we can do to deploy an ARM template. Now, ARM templates are very powerful, as we know, but there's also a lot of things that we can put in here. And some of the things that we can do is combine a lot of things, a lot of Azure services. And it would be great to have a validated security check before we even deploy them. Because elsewhere it's mitigation when it's already running in production or in test or something. So as you can see here, this scan will actually show you whether there's risks involved, how many there are, and on what kind of level. And here we have, like, for instance, storage DP encrypt in transit is not enabled. So we should do something about that. What this does then, it generates a CSV file, which will be put inside of a directory. And let me just quickly open this thing up. Here we go. It will give you a CSV file, which we can then open up in Excel, of course. What else? The best BI tool in the world. And then we can use this list as a checklist to validate and to repair all the errors that we made and the things that we need to implement for a security factor. So as you can see, it's a CSV file, so we can just easily do this. I can go to data and just do a text to columns. No, I was saying, not this thing, I was saying text to columns. Voila, and let's do let's do that again, because apparently I made a mistake. It was a little bit too fast, so let's do this, fixed and delimited. We have a comma here. Voila, tab, next, finish. And this will give me a full list that we can then format as a table. Here we go. Let's make it a little bit easy. Voila, my table's as it. And we can start. If it's a longer list, you can easily just filter on all these things. But at least, and that's the most important part, you will get a reason why this is a risk. Soft delete should be enabled, and you will also see what kind of properties that you need to set and all these things. So it really will help you to write better ARM templating. Now, this does the same for the subscription, and this will give you a full list of the things that you implemented badly. I'm going to open that, but it's the same kind of list that you have, and you will also get some recommendations there of the things that you need to do. Some of these recommendations will be put in back into the Azure Security Center, so you have some validation there too. But that's already after the facts, of course. There's another tool that you can use, which is called the ARM TTK, and this will also validate against best practices. It works in the kind of the same way. It's also a Microsoft tool that came out. And this ARM TTK, as you can see, I'm just quickly going to show you all the commands that we have. So we have get module, now get command. There we go, and we do module ARM TTK. voila, you will see that it has a couple of, if it's willing to collaborate with me, that it has a couple of commandlets in here that can be used against. It's not willing to collaborate with me. I'm just gonna quit this thing. Yeah, demo gods. So it's not really collaborating. Okay, what ARM-TTK does, it validates the correctness of your ARM templating, and it will also give you some good guidance on how to make it better. Yeah, so just to give you an idea. All right. Now let's go into the next phase. So this is pre, but we also want to do it during build. So we can use these things into scripting from a build perspective. Now there's some things that you can easily implement on GitHub or Azure DevOps or Jenkins. And one of these is white source, for instance. And white source bold is a free thing that you can implement on an easy way from a scanning perspective. Now, white source bold does scanning on a level of dependencies, but also a licensing. Let's say that you're using unlicensed software, and you're using it today, you have no clue about that. That's also a security risk because it can give you penalties at a certain point in time. So that's a weak thing. But this can be really easily implemented inside of your build environment. And let me just show you. So I have a build environment, so this is one where I implemented this, and this gives me a report on all the different packages that I'm using, all the different let's say npm node packages, whatever you have from packages. It will scan these and it will give you back results based upon a vulnerabilities database that is a global vulnerabilities database. Most of the security companies work on those things, and they push them in there. They recognize some of those, also new ones. And this will show you how vulnerable your application is from external access by means of the vulnerabilities that have sneaked inside of these dependencies. So this is very good to check from a dependency stance. And this will actually test your code against all these things. Now, as you can see, there's a severity that you can have, and this is just nicely implemented inside of your Azure DevOps. It also works from a security point of view inside of GitHub, for instance. If you're doing GitHub, it's in the marketplace that you can just download it for free. So it works with any kind of repository. You have free repositories, as I know. So any kind of software that you're writing with any kind of language, it's probably supported, and this will generate issues that you need to validate and that you need to work on, and where you can then just use your normal Git flow on top of that. And if you open these things up, you will actually see the full explanation, just a little bit like we have here, the vulnerability detail that we have, the suggested fix that you can have, and so on and so on. And then you can use them from, let's say, from here out inside of a project board if you have them. And that project board can then just be used as a follow-up or mitigation list against all your securities that you have, right? We also have that implemented on Dependabot, and Dependabot also does dependency scanning. So you can use them in combination and make your developer world a little bit safer. Another cool tool that I really, really love, which is also free for most of the features, at least it comes with free build minutes, is Snyk.io. And Snyk.io is the cool thing about Snyk, it really implements in a very easy way inside of your DevOps or even in your GitHub environment. So let me just quickly show you how this looks. So in GitHub, in Azure DevOps, you just go to your pipeline. This can be YAML or it can be the visual one, and you just need to implement this little step here. Snyk scan on application level or on container level. As you can see, I tried both of them. It even white source bolted is in there. And this will give you a report back inside of Azure DevOps, giving you a full layout of all the tests that have been done and what it has tested against. So in this case, it's all NPM information. They kind of give you the same information that white source bold give, but it goes a little bit further, because if you take a look from a full version that you have on their site, so you can even integrate it from their site within Azure DevOps or within GitHub. So, and let me just quickly log in here. this will actually give you more than that. It even has, if you have the paying option, it even has very nice reporting features on top of that. But as you can see, I have all these different projects. So there's pending tasks that I need to fix. You see, you have a nice dashboard of all your reports and all your applications that have been done. As you can see, it can scan on multiple levels. There's an integrations part here that you can set up on multiple levels. One of them is it can immediately be integrated in GitHub, GitHub Enterprise Server, GitLab, Bitbucket, whatever you have, Azure repos, but also Docker Hub and ACR, so Azure Container Registry, to scan those in advance. Kubernetes can be done from that perspective. So there's a lot of cool stuff in here. And they even now come with a better intelligence on your code, but also they are supporting an EAC scanning. So they do infrastructure as code scanning based upon, I think it's Ansible, Terraform, a couple of those things. So as you can see here, let me show you. It should be here somewhere in infrastructure as code. Don't see it for the moment, but there's an integration as infrastructure of code and a support for that. You just need to enable it on your coding parts. So as you can see here, and here you can see the support that it has. I haven't been playing around with it because it's only brand new since a couple of weeks that it's fully implemented. But you really should take a look at it from that perspective. It gives you a good bang for buck. Now, as you can see, here you go. So it's policies that you can set and all these different kind of Kubernetes and Terraform, and there's going to be more support in the near future. Now, one of the things that I'm also really a big fan of, and again, all these tools that I've shown you until now are all free. So there's no reason not to take a look at it, okay? So one of the things I also love is SonarQube, and SonarQube is a tool to give code quality and code reviewing a better life. It's very easy implementable, but it also has very nice security features. It's very easy to set up. I run SonarQube in an Azure service with a continuous deployment. Pretty cool. The only thing that you need to remember is that every single time there's an upgrade, you also need to upgrade the database. So that's the only thing that you need to keep in mind. And if you take a look at the way it looks, you view in a dashboard. It even runs as a service, and that's called Sonar Cloud, and that's also for free up until 1 million lines of code. So if you have small projects that are open source projects, you can actually use that and build against it. And there's building steps in both Git Actions in Azure DevOps for that. But this will actually give you a good security overview. And as you can see, if I go inside of this project, I can actually show you, there we go, it will give you security hotspots. And these hotspots will give you all the things that you need to keep in mind. So here's, like, for instance, it will scan for potential hard-coded credentials. Now, this project is built specifically for that. It's JuShop, which is a capture the flag application that you can use for security awareness and testing. So there's a lot of things that it will recognize, and it can. Cool thing about SonarQube, there's support for almost every language. Also, it's open source. You can. There's even a supported version with an enterprise queue behind. Most of the things can actually do these things, and it will generate issues on top of that, and it gives you nice overviews on the full environment, as you can see. So you get a nice security code here. So if I click on this, you will actually go inside of the security hotspots and have a better overview on all the measures and all the activities that you have. Okay. Next part. So there's this one thing that you can have from a paying perspective. Why am I mentioning that? If you have a Microsoft Azure Premier contract, or if you're a Premier user, you can also use this thing. And security analysis tool comes with, I'm just quickly going to show you this, comes with a lot of tools, and one of these you can have here. This one, yeah, here we are. Yeah, here we are. So I need to edit this one. It gives you a lot of tools here, which are implemented as building steps. It only works on Azure DevOps, unfortunately. But if we take a look on all the different build steps that it has, quickly I'll show you. Here we have our spread scan, which I mentioned earlier, but there's also bin skimmer, and it will generate you a at the end of the line, you need to implement a come on, I forgot to sacrifice a Java developer. Just kidding. So it's lagging a little bit. There we go. Wait. Voilà. So this can have all these green shield little thingies will actually get kicked off. And as you can see here, in the end, it will generate a security analysis report. It will post it inside of the artifacts that you have inside of your Azure build, Azure DevOps build, and then it needs to be published. And you can find these at the end, the artifacts of your published environment, and this will generate a matches file for the credential scanner, which is an XML file, a modern cop XML file, and that will generate a full report, an HTML file that you can download and gives you a full overview of all the security issues that have been found inside of your codes. So use that as widely and try to integrate that inside of your code. If you're a Premier customer, just ask for it. They will hook you up for free. Now, when we talk about the secure deployment part, and I need to hurry up here because I see that I'm almost reaching the end of my session, there's some things that we can do on that level too, not only from an automation part, but also on a practices part. So when we deploy to Azure, and most of my peers have already probably mentioned this earlier. I think Christos Matskas has already mentioned this. Sergey probably mentioned this too. The one thing that you should do is also always try to keep the principle of least privileges to make sure that everything is secure. So use proper management groups and use proper AAD management and use proper RBAC integration. One of the things that you can do to help you do safer deployments is to have a good way of implementing those. And one of these things that you can do here is to implement policies to do a safer deployment. So policies can actually save you a lot, but also RBAC can save you a lot. And you can integrate all of these principles fairly easily with blueprinting. So use blueprints and use these templates to set up a secure subscription where you can do secure deployment. I read these next slide. I leave these next slides for you reading, but there's one thing that I want to make sure that you also understand is even when you are deploying already inside of Azure, typically today we see a lot of things coming on here. We also need to monitor how the deployments have been done and how the deployments are working, right? So for this, we go into the next phase we call secure monitoring. And one of the things that can help you with that is Azure Security Center. First of all, we have Security Center. We have the scanning of all the policies that you've set in place, and it will validate whether your subscription is compliant with all the policies that you set from a regulatory compliance or your own policies that you've been setting. But we also make sure that you have resource hygiene on top of that. And very important, it will also scan for active threats, whether it's vulnerabilities inside of certain things, like for instance, containers. And container scanning is something we implemented a couple of months ago. And which is really, really useful because every single time you do a push, you can do the scanning of your application code. But what if you use your container based upon an image which is really, really weak? So Azure Security Center can actually help you with that. And one of the things that you can use in that level is if you go into Security Center, you will see that there's, it looks a little bit different now. Now we have inventory and compliance and secure score. So we have Defender that is actually taking care of that. And one of the things that we have here, let's go through inventory. This is the easiest way to show that. If it loads, come on. No, it's not that. It's not. I'm always wrong. It's Defender that I need to go through. It's okay. So Azure Defender. If you go into Azure Defender, it will actually already do the subdivision in certain points. Another thing that we have here is the advanced protection part. And we can see here that we have container image scanning enabled, we can also do that from a vulnerability assessment on a VM and such. So that there's that, but it's more in the container image scanning that it is pointing me through. So here I have in my subscription, I placed in some ACR, so some container registries, and I push some very unsafe registries in unsafe images in there, and this will scan from the moment we push the container image inside of the registry. You can see that it will scan the image and see where there's vulnerabilities or weak references of all these things that are happening. And as you can see here we have a very insecure image, which even has an escalation vulnerability in there. So you will get a full explanation of all these things. You will actually see a lot of cool information back. It also is based upon CVE databases, and even sometimes we can have a mitigation here. So we can have, if we double click on this, we can even have an affected resource, and you can even have a mitigation that can come back on these remediation if you have them, as you can see here. No updates available for Debian platform till to date. So you need to make sure that you harden your containers then from that level. So that's a very important part. Okay, there's one more thing that I want to talk about. GitHub also has a lot of cool features built in today. And one of the things that I'm still willing to show you is the new feature that we built in a couple of months ago, which we bought from a security company called SAML. SAML was an open source code scanning mechanism based upon a database that you create yourself based out of your code and all the best practices that we have all around the world. And you can implement that easily inside of a GitHub action. And this action, what it does a code QL scan, and this is just a YAML file that you can see, and I can actually show you what this looks like. So it's just a YAML file. If you go into workflows, you will see here that this code QL analysis will actually help you do. So it does a build an analysis based upon your code. It does a checkout. You set the language that you want to scan, and it does this initialization, and then it does an analyze based upon the code QL feature. Now, how do you implement this? Well, there's this in security, there's this little thing called code scanning alerts, and you can set that up fairly easily. Just go and press this little button here, set up more code scanning tools, and you can actually not only get code QL here set up, but you also get other marketplace code scanning security things. This unfortunately is advanced security, so this comes with a paying SKU, but this is really, really cool when you want to start implementing like Fortify or Prisma Cloud or scan by shift left, for instance, or SNCC container scanning. All these things can be set up from here out, and this is the infrastructure as code thing that I was talking about by SNCC. So they integrated these GitHub actions GitHub action workflows immediately inside of GitHub from there. And this will give you, if you take a look at it from our security point of view in the scanning part, this will give you, come on, here we go, all these different issues with a good explanation of what's going on and what is wrong, yeah, and what are the weak parts that are in there. Okay, so with that said, there's more security things that you can do. There's I have more references here of all the tools that are in here. I leave that to your reading. I even put some good reading material on how to set up secure stances, how to secure pipelines with additional things. There's even DAS scanning in here, so all the tools that you can use for dynamic application scanning. One of the cooler open source things is PortTrigger and OWASP as a scanning container that you can have. So that's the entire story that I want to tell you today. So I hope you found it interesting. I hope I taught you a couple of things, and I hope you had a very pleasant day for the rest of the day. By the way.
Yeah. Thank you for a good presentation. There are a lot of things that can be used, tools, integrations, etc. I would like to ask, do I need to use everything? of that.
No, you don't need to use everything, but at least use some of these. Try to. The most important thing is that you are aware of the risk that you can have and that you can integrate as a developer. And if there's free tools that can help you, at least giving you an insight on your code, then I don't see a reason why you shouldn't. Right?
Yeah, definitely. From my perspective, as someone who is on the field, the biggest problem is to convince people to use something, especially if they need to spend some kind of time for the first time, but they cannot. They need to be aware that next time they will spend less time for the pretty same things, pretty same like writing ARM templates, Terraform, or whatever. First time is maybe complicated. Second, third, if you need to refactor something or just reconfigure. But 10th and 15th deployment is just one click or something like that. That's pretty same for Azure DevOps, especially if we have implemented security part as layer for auto scanning, auto doing something. And yes, so many different things that definitely need to be part of our tools and need to learn just a few of them.
But it needs to be a mindset. It needs to be a mindset.
Yeah, that is the biggest problem today. I asked Mustafa in the very first session today because he spoke about container, how you handle your client if client want to move to containers and they doesn't know anything about containers, and especially if they want to move to containers and DevOps at the same time, because someone on C level said we need to be the containerized DevOps company from tomorrow or something like that. Yes, that's the biggest and most painful process is changing mindset in every single company, and we need to live with that.
Exactly. So you need to make sure that people are aware and that people get informed on a decent basis, and that and elsewhere, if you don't know how to do it yourself, hire an expert who can help you.
Definitely. So thank you for a great presentation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for accepting to be part of our small community conference, and hope that next year we will see in person in Belgrade, because we had a great conference last year. One of the very last conferences, in-person conferences in Europe last year.
Yes, it brings pain to my heart to say that, but indeed, and I really hope that about this time next year that things get a little bit more normal again. So, but I know the pain. I know the thing that you. I know the thing that you're going through. Okay.
Thank you again, and have a nice weekend.
Same to you, and I hope the rest of the conference goes smoothly. Okay.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me again. Bye-bye.
Bye.